Time now, though, to let you hear from Matt Mitchell. I think he's a very interesting character, almost in a way a shadowy figure, because you've probably heard his name, maybe you haven't, but he is the assistant quarterbacks coach for the BYU football program. But this is a title that was recently given to him when Kalani Sitake made some staff changes during the offseason. Before this, he has been an offensive analyst, but has been Aaron Roderick's right-hand man when it comes to coaching up BYU's quarterbacks. He's an expert in the field, obviously. He's done a very, very fine job developing BYU's quarterback talent, and it stretches back much further than you might imagine. So without further ado, here is my exclusive one-on-one conversation with BYU assistant quarterbacks coach, Matt Mitchell.
What does it feel like to officially have the assistant quarterbacks coach title?
Yeah, no, it's certainly an honor, and I just appreciate, Kalani, A-Rod, Fessy, all those people for trusting me with those guys, and obviously alongside A-Rod, so pretty cool. Appreciative of what they've done for me here.
Now, we talked to A-Rod about it, and he said it was a well-deserved. He said that when you went to Baylor, they wanted to get you back here. What's it been like working with a guy like that as long as you have?
Yeah, it's been awesome. When I was at GA here in 2020, I was actually with Fessy and the receivers, and just really was kind of admired how A-Rod coached the quarterbacks and how he handled them, and so he was always a guy that I wanted to get around more in a quarterback role. And so having the opportunity to come back after that year at Baylor wasn't an easy decision, but really wanted to be able to continue to learn from him and the rest of the offensive staff.
What is it about BYU that you enjoy?
Yeah, I think, it's funny, my wife and I were not members of the church, but we have a lot of the same values and beliefs, and so just had an unbelievable experience here. First of all, we love living here, and then the people you get to be around. Everybody talks about it, Kalani from the top down, and then the kids, the players. These are unbelievable human beings to be around, and really good players too. So it's a special place, and the fan support here is, I think, second to none. It's really, really impressive.
Okay, so I got to ask you this, because BYU fans are pretty intense.
Yeah.
Have they recognized you at all out in the wild since you got this title or anything like that?
No.
So still flying under the radar a little bit.
Still flying under the radar, and that's okay. I don't mind flying under the radar a little bit, and hopefully we put a good product on the field for them.
Now, obviously, a quarterback battle here. You probably didn't necessarily anticipate it, but when the Jake Retzloff situation went down, what's it been like evaluating these guys so far through camp?
Yeah, it's been really good. I think we've really seen a progression already for each of them, which is encouraging. Encouraged with their, they've all had their days where they shined, but I think over the last 3 or 4 days we've kind of done this, which is a positive, in taking care of the football and all that stuff. So that's been huge, and they all bring different things to the table, but man, just awesome human beings. I think they're all really well respected and well liked by their teammates, which is important, and so it's been fun to watch them battle. They're all really good players.
What was it that was so attractive about getting a guy like Bear here to BYU?
Yeah, we tried to make a push late there, before he signed with Stanford, while he was still in high school, and unfortunately it didn't come through. But then obviously I think once he entered the portal with the coaching change happening, we went full go, and he knows how we feel about him, and what was cool is we also had a need at receiver, and Tiger's a really good player too, and so great family, great fit here, and really good players. But I think with Bear you see dual threat abilities, thrower first, which is what we want, but a really good athlete, and has the ability to throw from a traditional pocket and then go out and make plays with his legs and throw off platform and all that stuff, and he's really smart.
What's allowed him to enter the mix as early as he is? He's 18 years old. He's still a young buck.
Yeah, I think some of it first starts with the family. Obviously, they're super smart people, and then having Hank, having Tiger, those older guys that have played at this level. He came in with a really good baseline understanding of offensive football, and I think he had some really good coaches at Stanford too. So he had that spring with them to be around good coaches and stuff. And then a lot of voluntary meetings to get him ready as soon as he signs. So he's put in the work, and so is Emerson Galliman. I'd like to point him out. Who we got from Bountiful. I mean, clearly we've seen in his limited reps like he belongs here, and he's a really good player that we're excited about the future with him too. So.
on the Emerson front, because he's planning on going on a mission, so you're
Yeah.
like, okay, we'll work with you now, but then you have to
Right.
put it on pause for 2
For
years.
sure.
How difficult can that be?
Yeah, I think that's hard, but I'd say with a guy like Emerson, we're just glad that he's in our program,
Okay.
and we're going to have him one day because we have a strong belief in him from what we've seen. And so, just put it on pause, and you get him better while he's here and grow him in the system and all those things. But he's a really good player and just an awesome kid, amazing kid.
Now, as you look at McCae and Treyson, they've been in the program for a little bit here.
Yeah.
Where have they progressed the most? I guess you can, and individually, in terms of their skill sets.
Yeah, I think for both of them, it's just that mastery of the offense,
Okay.
getting more reps with the ones, you know what I mean, that I think that what they're used to, and developing the chemistry with those guys. But I think, you've seen it kind of become second nature, the offensive execution side of things. So they're not worried. It's muscle memory to send this motion or this shift, and they can think about kind of the level 400, 500 stuff.
Yeah.
And then just developing chemistry with the guys that are going to ones and stuff has been big too.
When it comes to the Big 12, obviously there's a lot of quarterbacks that are returning in this league. You're one of the programs that's turning it over in terms of quarterback. How, I guess, quarterback-centric have you noticed this league to be versus what maybe has been in the past? I know you've been around it quite a while.
That's a good question, because, obviously Baylor in 21, we won a Big 12 championship. Gary was our quarterback that year, and then Chapin took over at the end. But I think it's a great quarterback league. I really do. Obviously, I'm biased because I'm in this league, but if you look at top to bottom, I mean, of the guys that are coming back, I mean, I have a lot of respect for a lot of the quarterbacks in this league. I like to watch other quarterbacks and study them and all that, and I think it's outstanding. I think it's really, really one of the strengths of this conference, which is cool because, when you're playing a great quarterback, you want to go beat him out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
How much of a say will you have in the ultimate final decision?
Yeah, that's always a kind of an ongoing conversation. Fortunately, A-Rod, him and I have a really good relationship. We trust each other. We see it the same. So we're almost always on the same page, to be honest with you. And so, he definitely wants my feedback. We talk multiple times a week about it, and then obviously Kalani's involved in that decision. Fessy will be involved in that decision, and we're going to get input from the O staff as well. So, but quite a bit, and I appreciate that.
Last question I want to ask you is, how soon would you like to have this decision made?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question, and I think it's like A-Rod said. I really believe in this. You got to let it play out.
Okay.
You got to give it time. You're trying to divide reps between 3 guys, and right now they all are getting enough reps, and the whole staff's been super unselfish about that, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
Making sure those guys get enough reps and still being smart with the team, and we're doing that. And so we're going to let it play out. And it's like A-Rod says, usually it's obvious to the team. You know what I'm saying? By the time it's time to make a decision, so that's what we're going to do.
A big thank you to Matt Mitchell for taking the time to join us here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. You heard him talk about the fact that he and his wife, they've absolutely fallen in love with the state of Utah, living here. He's got 2 super cute young kids. I actually had a chance to meet them yesterday. His wife was at practice, and man, he's got 2 cute little kids, but you can tell that he's absolutely engrossed in what he is doing. This is a guy, speaking of Matt Mitchell, that BYU's been lucky to have around the program as long as they've had him. At some point, he, like Jay Hill, like an Aaron Roderick, are going to have other suitors, if not already calling them, will be calling them to potentially hire them for bigger and better jobs. Matt has been absolutely a critical cog. And if you didn't know his name before now, I would encourage you to get to know that name because, as I mentioned, he's kind of been a shadowy, enigmatic figure, working kind of behind the scenes. But I can tell you, he's been no less important to the development of BYU quarterbacks like Zach Wilson, like Jaron Hall, Jake Retzloff, even this past season in 2024. He has been a critical piece to the success that BYU football has had. And I think it's about time he gets his just due because he has been a really, really important piece for this BYU football program. And once again, a big thank you to him for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. But I also appreciated his blunt reaction. He, much like Kalani Sitake and Aaron Roderick, said, we want to make this decision as quickly as possible, but we don't want to short circuit it. We want the team essentially to tell us who it is. And in time, that will happen. But as I mentioned earlier on in today's podcast, if you missed it, go back and listen to it. I just don't think you can wait much longer to whittle it down beyond this weekend. But we'll ultimately see because he, as he mentions, Fessy Sitake, Kalani Sitake, and Aaron Roderick, they talk often. And he says multiple times a week. If they're not talking every day, if not multiple times a day about this QB decision, I'd be very, very surprised if that's not the case. But once again, big thank you to Matt. And I think this is a guy that's going big time places down the line. But BYU's been lucky to have him as long as they have. And I hope they can hold on to him for at least a while longer.